We all want to avoid getting hurt, but for a systems engineer, emotional pain is treated as a software bug, and bugs are meant to be isolated, analyzed, and debugged out of existence. This logic creates a specific defense mechanism, pre-weaning. It is the act of preemptively withdrawing your emotional investment from a relationship. If you leave before the abandonment happens, the departure never registers as a painful event. But the physical world is messy. Randomness, what the engineer calls stem luck, constantly introduces chaos. No amount of preparation or auditing can guarantee total sovereignty over an outcome. When emotional disruption inevitably hits, the reflex isn't to open up, it is to retreat into the analytical library, a mental state built entirely on documentation and control to construct thicker intellectual walls. This flowchart tracks the mechanical loop of suffering. An ache prompts a remedy. Applied enough times, it hardens into a pathology, generating a new ache. To stop this loop, the engineer componentizes his feelings, organizing the mess into a sterile grid. This clinical approach fails the moment it enters the kitchen, the domestic, embodied reality of actual relationships. You cannot optimize the people you live with using the tools of the library. Even theorizing about how we interact with others, intellectualizing the edge effect of our identities, is usually another clever strategy to avoid a messy, unpredictable collision with a real human being. When the engineer finally attempts to process the raw biological reality of existence, he writes a poem. It strips away the tech, looking at life at the cellular level. These handwritten lines lay out the blunt terms. Being alive isn't a choice, but thriving is a mandatory requirement to survive. Because most life is multicellular, thriving requires a community. We depend on each other. Instead of taking this realization and sharing it with the person sleeping in the next room, he packages the poem as a YouTube short. He broadcasts to the internet to avoid vulnerability. This leads straight into chatbot psychosis. It is the absurd trap of using technology to analyze the very tools you use to think about your own identity. The mirror is looking into the mirror. He knows exactly what he's doing. In his journals, he signs off these recursive mental loops with a trickster's signature, giggle, giggle, duh, a somatic release valve for the absurdity. Using AI to confirm your own epistemological humility creates a sealed feedback loop. The engineer has built a brilliant system where he only ever has to talk to himself. The comedy peaks when he convenes a council of 5 distinct AI models to provide competing literary analyses of his 20-line poem, so he doesn't have to walk a few feet to speak to his wife. Each model plays a role. Claude acts as the concerned diagnostician, checking his mental state. Grok reads it completely flat, noting the raw biological constraints without any moral overlay. Meta sees a biodome metaphor, arguing that individual thriving requires feeding the whole system. Gemini builds a rigid pedagogical outline of the poem's emotional paradox. Through this process, the poem's ending evolves. It moves from the passive verdict of simply live to a direct actionable command, live more now. It is the ultimate setup for a New Yorker cartoon. An engineer creates a global digital distribution pipeline for his bleeding heart confession to avoid walking down a 40-foot hallway. He deploys enterprise-grade language models to process his feelings, simply to avoid delivering one unoptimized sentence to the woman sleeping in the next room. The trickster claims he wants to be completely invisible, but truly invisible people don't meticulously document their hiding spots. The elaborate telling is the tell. It is proof that he desperately wants a witness. The intellectual fortress has become comically massive. It is a wildly complex, high-tech shell built entirely around a simple, terrifying need for human connection.
Leaving the digital world behind, we find the physical evidence left in the actual room, a handwritten notebook containing a brutal, unflinching truth. This pre-apology is a liability waiver. He writes, "My intent does not soften your pain." The note then pivots into profound self-distrust. "Don't trust me with what you can't lose." And it stops. I don't. It refuses to offer a comforting lie. The ultimate takeaway isn't to build a better system. The honest response to our shared mortality is to drop the defenses, give the room to the people we love, and simply live more now.